Civil Rights and Changing Roles. In this lecture, I'm going to address Virginia SOL US 2.9a. At the conclusion of this lecture, you need to be able to answer the following essential questions. What were some effects of segregation on American society? How did the African American struggle for equality become a mass movement? How did the law support the struggle for equality for African Americans? How were women disadvantaged in the workplace? And what conditions were taken to improve conditions for women? Some effects of segregation. Segregation had many negative effects on American society. In the decades following Reconstruction, many states created separate educational facilities and resources for white and African American students. Public facilities such as restrooms, drinking fountains, and restaurants were also separated. The Civil Rights Movement. Lawyers with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, began to file lawsuits challenging segregation in educational facilities. For decades, the schools had been separated under the separate but equal doctrine handed down by the Supreme Court in Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. In Brown v. the Board of Education, the Supreme Court struck down the separate but equal doctrine, specifically in schools, but this sets the precedent. In 1955, Rosa Parks of Montgomery, Alabama, refused to move to the back of a bus so a white man could sit down. She was arrested, and this sparked a 381-day boycott of the Montgomery bus system that led to the desegregation of buses in the South. And Martin Luther King Jr. was a prominent leader of the Civil Rights Movement. In 1963, more than 200,000 people participated in the March on Washington, where Dr. King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. The next year, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which made segregation in public places illegal. The next year, Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which banned laws that prevent people from registering to vote. Changing role of women. Women in the United States faced several disadvantages in the workplace. Many were discriminated against both in hiring and in opportunities for promotion. Women also earned lower wages than men for doing the same jobs. Author and feminist Betty Friedan helped found the National Organization for Women, NOW, in 1966. NOW's goals included helping women get good jobs and equal pay. Title IX of the 1972 Education Amendments outlawed discrimination against women in schools. For example, colleges that received federal money had to fund men's and women's sports programs equally. Congress approved the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972, which stated that rights could not be denied on the basis of gender, but only 35 of the required 38 states ratified it before the 1982 deadline. Despite its failure, the attempt to ratify the ERA brought attention to the need for equal opportunity employment, and this led to a wider range of options and advancement for women in business and public service. So in summary, the Civil Rights Movement resulted in legislation that ensured constitutional rights to all citizens of the United States regardless of race. Women activists were inspired by the achievements of the Civil Rights Movement and took action to gain equality for women, particularly in the workplace.